Welcome to Awesome Movie Year, the podcast where we look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year. My name is Josh Bell, film critic and writer, and I'm joined by my co-host.
I'm Jason Harris, filmmaker, comedian, patron of the arts.
Are you a patron? Or are you really just like, you're the guy who benefits from the patrons?
Lover of the arts?
Lover of the
supporter of the arts?
Sure, yes, yeah.
You know,
we patronize some arts sometimes. Yeah.
At least we we get the word out about arts, but you can't call yourself the getting the word out or about our arts. That's
I mean, you could, but that's a mouthful there.
Nah, stick with patron.
Yeah. So in this season of Awesome Movie Year, we're taking a look at the films of 2007. And this is our Sundance episode, but we called an audible. I guess that's a sports term. I'm not good with the sports
terms. That was
terms.
Good. You used it. It was like we were going to do one thing and then we ended up doing another, hence an audible.
All right. Yeah.
Josh, you're a hero for all nerds like
Thank you.
Basically what you're saying is, our plan was to watch to talk about the grand jury winner of Sundance from this year.
Yes.
Padre Nuestro / Sangre de mi Sangre.
Yes.
Whatever you want to call it. We watched it on a lazy weekend afternoon together on my couch.
Perfect movie for a lazy weekend afternoon.
Two pals.
Yeah.
Just hanging on the couch. And we both, not only one did not like the movie, which is fine. Like if we didn't like it.
Sure. We've talked about movies we don't like before.
Yeah. We just didn't think there was enough there to give you, our listeners, then meet that good, all the stuff that you come for Awesome Movie Year. So what we're doing is a different movie from the 2007 Sundance Film Festival, one that we both like and I personally love.
Yeah, I like this movie a lot too. It is also an award winner from Sundance. It was the World Cinema Audience Award winner, and it's John Carney's Once, which is, I like it. Maybe not as much as you. I feel like you have a strong personal affinity for this movie, maybe that we don't share, but I like this movie a lot. And we're going to have a special guest later to talk about it with us as well.
Yeah. So our special guest is someone we both know for over 20 years, our high school compadre, Megan Riordan, who has gone on to a very successful live stage acting career. And she starred in Dublin in the theatrical production of Once for an extended run. And she's toured around the world with it, at least, when I say around the world, at least to one other country, Seoul, South Korea.
That counts as the world.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. We'll talk to Megan in a little bit about her connection to Once. But first, we can take a little look back at Once. As we said, it was a Sundance premiere at the 2007 festival, where it won the World Cinema Audience Award. It was released. It made $23.3 million at the box office on a budget of $150,000. So that's insane.
Amazing.
Yes, amazing.
And John Carney had to use some of his own money to get this thing produced. It was through different iterations, like Cillian Murphy. Is that kid?
Yeah. Who's had starred in a previous John Carney movie, was originally set to star in this.
And once he dropped out, then so did most of the money. So it was mostly Irish Film Board money, and then some of Carney's personal money that he offered to pay the salaries to his lead actors, and it worked out for them all.
Yes,
they all get back end profits on that.
I hope they do, because they deserve it. It was a movie. I think they ended up shooting a lot of stuff without permits, and I mean, typical indie movie things. But to make a movie like that, and then to go on to this massive acclaim and to make that much money, I mean, $23 million for a movie on that kind of budget is just astonishing.
Yeah, I think when you watch the movie, that's part of its charm, is that naturalistic feel that you're watching something as it happens, that you're not necessarily watching a movie, but you're there almost watching these events unfold live.
Right. It's got a very documentary-like feel, and that comes from the way that they had to shoot it. It won a friggin' Oscar. I mean, from coming from that origin, not only making that money, but to end up at the Oscars, it won the Best Original Song Oscar for Falling Slowly, which was written by Glen Hansard and Marketa Irglova, the stars of the movie, who also wrote, I think, all of the music in the film.
Right, they did, and they had already been performing together as the Swell Season. Carney was actually in Hansard's band back in the day.
The Frames. Yeah.
Right. So this song was actually out before and there was a big controversy about it. Like, oh, is it really an original? And the Academy was all like, yeah, and we never heard of it. So it counts.
Which is interesting because usually it happens the other way. And there have been so many instances where on some ridiculous technicality, songs or scores are not able to be nominated because some element. I think Johnny Greenwood has had that before. If he like incorporates some small element of some existing composition, his whole score is ineligible to be nominated. So they got lucky with that, I think.
I think it's by this point in time, it had developed such a groundswell of support, a groundswell season of support.
Sure.
So that it was almost impossible. This was the feel good story of the movies of that year. Maybe this and Juno, I'd say. So
yeah,
that I could totally see the Academy being like, we want them there. We want them to perform, show that anyone from anywhere can be an Oscar contender or win an Oscar.
Right. Yeah. Although that usually doesn't stop them from screwing people over just because there's popular sentiment in favor.
I'm going to give them credit this one time. All right.
Fair enough. You can be generous to the Academy.
Jason, I know that you're a big crier at movies, as am I sometimes. Did you cry when they won the Oscar? Because I know I sure as shit did.
You know why I didn't? And Josh is going to ask about this because I hadn't seen the film at that point in time.
Okay.
What? Oh my God.
But upon rewatching, I might have shed a tear or two recently for prepping for this podcast. So.
It also won the Independent Spirit Award for Best Foreign Film, which is kind of interesting. I guess it didn't need to be in a foreign language in order to win that award. So you didn't see it until after it won the Oscar?
No, I didn't even see it in the theaters or anything. I know you did, and you told me about it.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah. So, brief history, went to Ireland in 2013 with my brother. As if you listen to Dave's podcast, Piecing It Together, we did an episode on Blinded by the Light. I mentioned how we went to follow Springsteen around there in Ireland. I kind of fell in love with Ireland. And since that time, I've been toying with my own idea about shooting a movie there, which I still should actually do.
Yeah, you should.
But I've also, since that time, I've really kind of fallen in love with a lot of Irish movies. So I actually hadn't seen this until after that trip.
Until like 2013?
Yeah. And probably even later, and
had you listened to the soundtrack?
I mean, I knew the big song.
You knew the songs.
And I knew obviously Hansard's love for the boss. So, but no, it was like discovering it's like one of those things. Like I remember once I took my old roommate to a restaurant out here that I'd been telling him that we should go to for a year that I loved. And then when we went, it was so good. He looked at me and he's like, I should have listened to you a year ago. That's kind of how I felt with Once. Like, why did I wait so long to watch this brilliant film?
Yeah. So. No, that's funny because I feel like my impression has always been, oh, Jason loves this movie. And I just assumed you must have seen it when it was, because it was a huge sensation when it came out.
I do love this movie, and I guess I caught it on a different wave than everybody else.
No, that's
what about you? You saw it. Did you know much going into it?
Well, yeah, I did because I did see it when it was out in theaters. But even by that point, by the time it got to theaters here in Las Vegas, it was already such a big deal. I mean, it had played at Sundance in January and had won that award, and it had been at other festivals and had been building this acclaim. And I feel like anytime you have a movie like this where it was made on such a tiny budget and then it becomes this massive pop culture sensation, it's just you constantly hear about it. So yeah, I remember. I mean, I was working as a film critic at the time, and this movie, I can't remember who the distributor is, but they did not have a press screening here in Las Vegas. But it did open in theaters, and I remember, buying a ticket and going to see it. And liking it, although I think it was one of those movies that because it had been so heavily hyped, I'd been hearing about it for months, that maybe I was a little let down just because it wasn't the greatest thing I'd ever seen. But I do like it a lot, and revisiting it again this time, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, it is tough when you get those expectations that you have, nothing to do with, right? That they're already kind of tidal waved you with and whatnot. But it was on a lot of top 10 lists by the end of the year, right?
Yes.
A lot of number ones.
Yes. And actually, that's a perfect segue into talking about some of the reviews, because we can start with...
You're welcome.
We get this well-oiled machine here. We can start with Michael Phillips in the Chicago Tribune, who did in fact name it the best movie of 2007 and was filling in for Roger Ebert on TV at the time. So got to talk about it on there. He says, the Irish musical romance Once is so beguiling, I didn't realize until after a second viewing how infernally corny writer-director John Carney's film might have turned out in lesser hands. It's a very small piece working in a deceptively casual storytelling style, but it's my favorite music film since Stop Making Sense, and it's more emotionally satisfying than any of the Broadway to Hollywood adaptations made in the last 20 years.
Man, that's a good, nice little review there. I kind of agree in that idea of like, we talked about it. It's so natural that like, and it is such it is a small story, right? But it's so kinetic the way that it's done that I do think that at least me, I resonated more with that than any of those big Broadway to film adaptations.
Yeah, certainly on an emotional level, I think. I mean, I've liked some of those big Broadway. I can't remember what year Dreamgirls came out, but I remember really liking that movie a lot.
I think it was, if not the same year, similar year, because once it lost the Grammy nod, it lost one of the Grammys to the song from Dreamgirls.
Yeah, Dreamgirls was 2006.
Right? Oh, okay, yeah.
So like they were both up for, Love You. Like Dreamgirls was the no song.
Oh, please stop.
I'm going to start singing the one.
That was completely the wrong register.
We promise no more singing in this episode from Jason. No,
that's
stop.
the one song. No, anyway, it did lose a Grammy to
Dreamgirls.
Yeah, to the one, that famous song there.
Yeah.
Dreamgirls.
Is it I'm telling
Best
you I'm
soundtrack,
not going?
I think?
Yeah. Because they had an original song in Dreamgirls. That's what they always do with those Broadway ones.
So now I have it clear.
Okay.
They lost a Grammy to Love, the Beatles song, for best soundtrack.
Okay.
Of like a amalgamation of anything that's a soundtrack.
Right. For the Cirque du Soleil show?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
And then it Falling Slowly lost to Love You, I Do, for song from a movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, not to get off on a Dreamgirls tangent, but I do like some of those Broadway to film adaptations, but I do think that there's a lot more authentic emotion in this.
Yeah.
film.
I mean, look, I love Moulin Rouge, which is not a Broadway show first, but it was spectacular. And, but this one definitely hits you in all the feels on a much more core level.
Yes. And I hate Moulin Rouge. Let's see what Ella Taylor from LA Weekly has to say. Like the memories we have, if we're lucky, of formative interludes in which a love affair never fully gelled but expanded our vision of what we might do with our lives, Once feels handmade in the best sense. An impressionistic feast for the senses cobbled together from lovely grace notes and a warm palette of reds and yellows. Exhausted session players toss a frisbee on an early morning beach washed in silvery grays and blues. The girl leaves her drab home in pajamas and bunny slippers to walk the streets of nighttime Dublin with a CD player clamped to her ear, singing along to her friends' plaintive tunes. The guy lolls on his bed, replaying fragmentary images of his lost love. The only symmetry in their lives is a thwarted need to be heard.
That's a good review also. And those were some of the more memorable images from the film, right?
Yeah.
Where she's walking in with her slippers trying to work on a song and she needs new batteries or whatnot.
Right. Yeah.
And he's working on a song about a heartbreak, looking at old videos of his ex-girlfriend, who was actually Carney's real girlfriend.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, and then, they finally do the demo. They kind of impress the engineer, and they all go out after a hard working all-nighter and listen to what they've recorded and throw a frisbee on the beach. And it's like almost finally a moment where they can relax and celebrate for just a minute.
Yeah. It's a lot of nice kind of home movie-ish almost moments. I was like, coming into watching this again, I was thinking about, like, I remembered there was a lot of music and I remembered it was kind of a romance, but I was thinking, like, what is the plot of this movie? And then watching it, I was like, well, there's very little of it, but that's kind of what's nice about it. It's just getting a glimpse into these people's lives and their emotional states.
It's pretty much like, hey, we meet, we have common interests, let's do a thing, then we do a thing.
Thank you for that summary. Lastly, Amy Simmons in Time Out London said, John Carney's poignant modern-day love story set on the streets of Dublin offers a brooding alternative to the traditional conventions of the musical. Carney settles in for long, intimate shots of the pair whose songs articulate more about the characters than any monologue could. Too shrewd for idealistic closure, the film's stiff dose of postmodern angst thwarts numerous romanticized perceptions of love, sex, and conjugal possibility. Besides, the guy's too old for the girl and still infatuated with his ex, and she has a child and an estranged husband back in the Czech Republic.
I was thinking about that when I was researching after watching this. If this movie was made today, would it have the same love? Because, at the time, Hansard's 37.
Yeah.
She's 19, or she's 17 when they shot the movie, I think, right? And there's a quote, because they did get together as a romantic couple afterwards. And, there's a quote from Hansard that said, like, of course we got together. I had been falling in love with her for a long time. And this was the next step. He'd known her since she was 13. So
right.
That I think if he had said that today in today's era, they'd be like, let's maybe not let's put that with the Kevin Spacey movies or something like that. So
yeah, maybe. I mean, there's never been any indication of any kind of coercion or anything like that in their relationship. But yeah, that does give you pause. And I think it's interesting to me because watching the movie, you can tell, at least for me, you can tell that they're not the same age. But to me, she doesn't look quite as young as she really was.
She's more mature than him in a lot of ways. She's
got
a baby and, a husband. And also, let's just say there are plenty of love affairs that have gone on with people of different ages. And we're for that as long as it's on the up and up.
Yeah. There's no indication, again, that there was anything shady going on.
The other thing is co-stars always, co-stars, musical duets.
Yeah.
Simon and Garfunkel were an item for years.
Heavy, yeah.
Hall and Oates.
Okay.
I want to see those movies.
Yeah. I bet those movies, those fan fictions exist. I guarantee you that exists. Yeah. So, okay. Any other background info you wanted to share, Jason?
Well, one thing that I thought was interesting was you were kind of talking about how some of the busking scenes were filmed, some of the street performing scenes were filmed, which were long lenses. So a lot of the time, the people who were in the scenes, other than Glen Hansard and, pronounce her
Marketa Irglova.
Marketa Irglova. I can't, the names.
Yeah, you're not good with pronunciation of words sometimes.
Words are tough. Don't get me started on math.
That's a particularly hard word.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
But a lot. What I was,
I probably pronounced it wrong too.
Well, I would rather you do that.
Oh, thank you.
What I was going to say is a lot of their scenes, the passersby didn't even know they were being filmed for it. So that was pretty cool. The way that was done and the way that it played off as a real element of the film.
Yeah, that is cool. And I think that does add to the feel of the movie, that kind of documentary-like feel or the home movie-ish feel. Even though it was, and that's something I think that happens in a lot of indie movies where it was something they did like out of necessity because they couldn't afford the permits or whatever. And it turns out to be a really important element of the style of the movie.
Yeah. In this one it was. And the only other thing I thought was funny, because this was such an Irish thing to say, was when Steven Spielberg saw it, he had said, "A little movie called Once gave me enough inspiration to last the rest of the year." And John Carney responded, "In the end of the day, he's just a guy with a beard."
Is that your Irish accent?
Maybe.
Yeah, it was better than your Dreamgirls singing voice, probably.
Well, that I'll stick to the impressions for you then from now on.
Thank you. All right, well, we'll come right back and talk a little more about our general thoughts on Once. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. And in this episode of our 2007 season, we're talking about Sundance Award winner Once. And coming up in a little bit, we'll have a special guest, actor and singer Megan Riordan, actor, singer / our high school classmate who appeared on stage in Ireland in the stage version of Once. So.
Good thing you're not writing her resume. That's too long.
That's not valid for a whole resume.
Yeah, that's fair.
She's gonna love this. So as we were saying before, Jason, you love Once, despite having come to it a little later. You're a big fan.
I love it, man. I love this movie. It just works on like every level, and like it's one of those movies, like you were saying, maybe it shouldn't work because there's not much of a story, although there is a story.
There is. I will say, like, I wasn't sure what the story was. I didn't remember, but coming back to it, I thought, there is more story than I remembered that there was.
And they do certain things that you're not supposed to do in musicals. Like they'll go where she's singing a song, right? So then you think you're going to get the next block of scenes to get to the next emotional high or low point to get to the next song. But they'll go right from her song, fade to black, right into his song, right?
Yeah.
You know, and so they do all this stuff. And I thought the performances, just like if they were professional actors, I don't think it would have worked as well. This just really hit it on all levels for me.
Yeah. I was trying to imagine Cillian Murphy in this after having read that he was originally cast, and I think that would have been just a huge mistake to put him in. Not that he's not a good actor, and apparently he has experience as a singer. I don't know that I've seen him singing in any movies, but still, I think the authenticity of it is so important. And even if you don't know that that those actors are musicians and that they wrote these songs, I feel like that comes across in the movie.
I think so. All that stuff is right. Like if you saw someone recognizable, you wouldn't be, because of the way it's shot, you wouldn't be as lost in the whole thing. And the fact that it is so low budget works in its favor. You know, a lot of the stuff they did, like there's that big party scene. That was actually Glen Hansard's apartment flat, if you will. His mom is in there singing, and you know, they're really, it's just like, hey kids, let's put on a show, that type of feel.
Right. Yeah. That very much comes across. And weirdly enough, I think, you know, watching it again now after it's been famous and had become a sensation and is now this highly regarded film, in a weird way, you still get that sense of these people being unknowns because neither of them went on to acting careers. It's not like, oh, now I recognize him from all these other movies he was in. It's still just this one thing.
And, you know, he's still releasing albums, and he's pretty, and maybe not in this country, but he's pretty famous, I'd say, overall.
Right.
And she hasn't really released anything since the end of this. She lives in Iceland with
She's done
her
a few
kids.
things. Yeah, I was looking, we can talk about later maybe, but
Ooh, challenge.
No. I mean, but you're right that they have both kind of, especially in the US, they're not like super famous musicians either.
I like how it, you know, did you read what the interpretation of the title meant?
I did not.
Okay, so they were saying once, because, you know, as we said, Carney used to be a musician. He was talking about all his artist friends who have said, once I get this in order, then I can focus on my career. Once I do that, then I can get back to, you know, doing what I want. And it's all about these artists who have let life make it so they can't pursue what they want to pursue. And I feel like, man, you're just rooting so hard for Glen and girl.
Just guy and girl, not even, it's not Glen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, did you see the theory of who that character might be? I always thought that
Which
was
character?
interesting. The guy character.
Is it not to not represent like Glen Hansard or John Carney?
Right. It's not. It is not. Did you ever see The Commitments?
No, I have not seen The Commitments. I know Glen Hansard, he has like a small part in that.
Yeah, and he's very good in that. Well, I don't even remember if he's very good in that, but it's a very good movie. He does have a small part in it. But his character, the last scene is he's not in the band anymore. He's out on the street busking.
Oh, yeah.
And the first scene of this is that he's there busking. So
Right.
A lot of people have made that jump that that's the same character.
Although, doesn't The Commitments take place in like the 60s?
I don't remember, man. Leave me alone. I think it's the 80s, but
Okay.
yeah.
Well, even so,
Outspan Foster.
that's the name of the character.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you need to. One of the good things about this movie is that you don't need to project backstory on these characters, that the movie gives you everything that you need. I mean, there is backstory. And again, I think there's more than I had remembered that there was in terms of his relationship with his father and the fact that his mother has died and all that stuff, and her having come from the Czech Republic and kind of left her husband, but not really sure how that relationship is going to be. So I think this movie gives you exactly as much as you need to understand them as characters and invest in them as a romance. And also, as you were saying, as these artists who need that little push to kind of get themselves to the next level.
I kind of love that relationship with the father where it totally maximizes its effectiveness. Maybe it's like 3-4 scenes, right? They're working together in the vacuum repair shop, and maybe you see him one other time. And then at the end, Guy plays his demo for the dad, and you know the dad's listening. And actually before that, he even brings like the whole band tea while they're rehearsing in the flat and everything. And you know they play the demo, and you know he's this like hardened blue collar guy who's just made it through his life. And, he says, what do you think? And the dad just goes, fucking brilliant, and it's like, you're rooting for that. Right. And,
Right.
the dad loves him and he's going to go visit him when guy moves to London, and guy's like, are you going to be all right without me? He's like, I was all right without you for 26 years before you were born.
Right.
I turned him into Liam Neeson.
Yeah, that would have been.
I have a special set of skills. I'm living on my own.
But no, I think you're absolutely right. And that's the kind of character that in this kind of movie we often expect will be sort of the disapproving dad, the working class guy. And he just wants the son to take over the vacuum repair shop and start a family or whatever. But it's the complete opposite of that he's so supportive and loving. And yeah, that's really good. I mean, you could even argue that this movie has very little conflict.
Almost no conflict.
Yeah. I mean, even the romance is so, like, there's a moment early on in the movie where a guy kind of makes a pass at the girl and says she could stay over, and she rejects him. And even that is so mild. And then they go right from that to being all good with each other and being friends and let's collaborate on music. It's just a nice movie. Everyone in this movie is very pleasant.
It's again one of those things where like, oh, what are the rules of movies? 3 acts and this conflict here and that conflict there, and like, oh yeah, what about once? It's like, oh yeah, you can just make a good movie if you have awesome characters and creativity and passion.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Even when you have Eamon, the disapproving recording engineer, when they're making their demo, right? Like he's like, oh, this is gonna suck, right?
Right.
They play the one song for him and he's like, all right, I'm all in. Let's go like do this for 3 days straight. And it's like, yes, you're rooting for that. You want these guys to succeed.
Yeah, of course. Everyone is so likable in this movie. You do want them to succeed. And I think it's interesting to me because the handful of negative, I didn't quote any negative reviews, but the handful of negative reviews or when people respond to this movie negatively, I feel like it's mostly people who don't like the music. And if you can't buy into this music being great, then I can totally understand how the movie just wouldn't work for you.
And what do you guys think? Dave, you're a musician. You wrote a post about the Tool album recently.
Very different from Tool's album, but this was honestly one of my favorite albums of 2007. So I love the music in this movie. I think it's just amazing.
Yeah, I like the music fine. I definitely like listening to the music now. It's like, oh, this is just kind of Coldplay-ish. It's very pleasant, nice. The music, I feel like, is like the characters. It's pleasant. It's nice. Most of it is a little forgettable. I could buy into the movie making me believe that the music was great in the context of the movie. Would I like listen to it over and over on my own? Probably not.
Coldplay, come on, man.
Yeah, I don't know about Coldplay.
It's Van the Man, buddy. That's Van Morrison all the way.
Yeah.
Even the first song we hear him play is a Van Morrison
Well,
song.
that's a Van Morrison song, but I'm talking about the original song.
I think a lot of the original songs sound very Irish, of that kind of.
I always thought Damien Rice. It reminds me of Damien Rice.
Yeah.
But which I don't really think of as Coldplay-ish. But
Yeah.
I don't know. But I just love the music though. I think it's great.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to denigrate it. I guess what I'm saying is that, like, for a lot of people, if they can't really be into the music, they can't be into the movie.
Sure.
And my feeling was, I don't love this music, but I still, again, in the context of the movie, I'm totally on board with it.
Yeah, I think I do like the music, but just you see how passionately they perform it. That also adds to it. And then also the way that you see them build songs together really helps you get behind that and, want and root for it as well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. One thing I love, and that's something I wanted to mention, is, and I love this in other movies too, other music related movies, where you see the scene of how they build the song, how the songwriting process goes.
Yeah.
And I love seeing that. And to me, it was striking that when they perform Falling Slowly, which is the, big song from this movie that everyone knows,
Do you want me to sing it?
Please don't. But that scene is the scene of them essentially writing the song. And I
Right.
thought how impressive that the major song in the movie is presented in that way. I mean, they didn't necessarily, of course, know that was the major song, but that's the one that people grabbed onto, even when it was shown in that kind of almost halting way.
Well, 2 things about that. One, it's also very early on in the movie,
Right.
which you would think like the big showpiece might be a little later.
Yeah.
And 2, I did read that Hansard jokingly said after they finished filming that sequence, and the Oscar goes to, you know, so
Yeah.
I don't know. You know when you have a good song, you know,
Yeah.
like well, Dave might not, but you
Yeah.
know, because it hasn't happened yet. But no, you know, it's funny. I was writing this script a couple of years ago about comedians, and I was trying to figure out how to do the same thing, like craft a joke. How do you show? And you know, Whiplash does that so well, the development of music and the development of a skill and everything. And it's easier when you have music, when you're just like, it's not as cinematic to be like, here's the setup and punchline, no, cross it out, punchline, no, cross it out.
Right.
So
Yeah.
but I'm with you on that. I like seeing the development of the craft because it shows character insight as well as, you know, the professional abilities of the characters.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the things about this movie is that not only is it a musical where the characters are singing, but the characters themselves are really talented musicians, and you get that, and that they're talented and they work hard at what they do. They're craftsmen, like you said.
Yeah, and I like how Irish a lot of it is, and I'm excited to ask Megan about, you know, kind of what busking means to Dublin and everything. But you know, the idea that he goes up to that street band and he's like, "You guys want to do this demo?" And he's like, "It's kind of soft singer songwriter," and he's like, "We only do Thin Lizzy." type stuff. Well, you know, hey man, who doesn't love Phil Lyman, right?
Yeah.
So I thought, you know, it had a lot of good little Irish style humor in there. Like he takes his dad's motorcycle and she wants to drive it, and he goes, you know, no, he doesn't even know that I took it. And she goes, well, then he won't know that I took it either or whatnot.
Right.
So just some fun stuff all the way through. And then we get you know, to the ending, right?
Yeah.
Or spoilers, guys.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's fine.
yeah, it's from 2007. And man, that ending really works. Like, you know,
It does. Yeah.
So you want to talk about it?
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, I think that it like we were saying about everything else, it thwarts the expectations. It does what you don't think a movie like this would do, or a movie in general would do.
Right. You think they're going to get together. And at one point, she even tells him that she loves him in her in Czech,
yeah.
and he doesn't know it, and she doesn't bother translating.
Right. And we as the audience don't necessarily know that unless we go look it up.
Which we did.
Right. We
So,
did.
yeah.
But not everyone would.
Right. So the ending is he's going to go back to his ex that he's been pining over, and she's happy that he's coming. And then the girl's husband is coming from the Czech Republic, so they'll have their family back together. And are either of them really happy about these situations?
I mean, I think they are, and that's what I really like about this movie, that ending is not, oh, how sad that they didn't get together because they felt obligated to be with these other people. But the ending is that the best thing that happened is that they're both in the relationships they should be in, and their relationship making music worked out really well.
And I disagree with all of that, which is the beauty of a film, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, he buys her this piano to like kind of thank her for everything. And he, you know, they were going to get together. They were going to spend a night together. And then she ghosted him.
Yeah.
And so he buys her this piano. And, you know, the end, we see him like kind of, you know, walking off or to the plane or whatever it is, right? And she's playing the piano, but she's looking out the window. And I always felt like she was longing for something different the way that was shot.
Yeah.
And then what I also love is it ends on like a bus pulling up. And you're like, is he on the bus? Is he coming back to win her over? Well, I don't know.
Right. No, I mean, I think you can see that maybe they have some wistfulness or some wondering about what could happen, but at the same time, they're still in the right place for themselves. I don't feel like this is a sad or even bittersweet ending, you know, like something like the Before trilogy, which I think this movie has been compared to a lot.
Yeah, it is.
Where those endings, I mean, are very effective, but they can be kind of emotionally devastating. I didn't feel that way about this movie. But on the other hand, if they decided to make a sequel, you know, in 2019 or whatever, to have them re-meet after all these years and revisit that romance, potentially like in the Before movies, I would buy it. But at the same time, I also buy that they never were together romantically, and that was still worked out for them.
I think it would be great, especially if it was like they could really play it off of the real life scenario of like, hey, you know, we made this record and it caught fire, and then we never really did anything together, and now, you know, we're both at different points in our lives, and let's try to make a record again and see what happens.
Right.
Know?
We could call it Twice.
Twice?
Yeah.
Once again?
Once again. That's good. Yeah.
One more time?
Not
Once, as good.
Yeah, no, I looking up reviews for this. I noticed how the laziness of headline writers and like, was it Once More with Feeling? I think was numerous headlines of reviews for this movie.
Before we close this segment, I want to ask Dave, have you ever done the car test?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Everything I make. Yeah.
So they finish the demo and Eamon, the engineer, says time for the car test. He piles the band in the van or the station wagon and he says, we hear it here, but we got to hear it on the lo-fi speakers of the car and see how it sounds.
Right.
Even this podcast, I do that with.
How do we sound in the car?
You guys sound magnificent.
Oh, of course we do. Of course we do. We talked a little bit about acting performances, like the fact that they're very believable and they're strong as actors, even though they haven't been acting before.
I think so. And I think there's probably a lot of improvisation just based on how the dialogue goes. It's like, hey, in this scene, you're going to ask her if she wants to record a demo. And you're going to first say no, but eventually relent, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So,
I would have absolutely believed, even though it didn't happen, that either of these people went on to strong acting careers after this, because I feel like they could have absolutely done that. But they didn't. And that's, like I was saying before, kind of one of the charms of this movie.
Who did go on to a strong acting career? Megan Riordan.
Yes. So wonderful segue there. So we've got Megan Riordan waiting for us, and we'll come right back and talk to her about her experiences with Once.
We're back here at Awesome Movie Year. This is Jason for Once introing a segment. Take a back seat, Josh. This is exciting. Our old friend Megan Riordan over in Dublin is here. Hi, Megan.
Hi, guys.
Hooray.
Hooray.
And let me tell you a little about Megan, who was kind enough to send me her bio in the smallest font possible. Excuse me while I get a magnifying glass. Megan is a graduate of New York University's Tisch School of the Arts. She has a BFA with honors in theater and of Trinity College in Dublin. Is it a master's of philosophy you have?
It is, yeah.
Wow.
I
And
know.
now we know why you're acting, because the one profession you can find less work in than acting is philosophy. In Irish film and theater. She's worked in theater, film, TV, radio in New York and Ireland as a performer, director, producer for over 15 years. Her acclaimed theater company, Making Strange, has made shows that have been nominated for Irish Times Theatre Awards, which are Ireland's equivalents to the Tonys, and has had runs in festivals such as Edinburgh in Australia and off-Broadway. She's had 2 shows at the Abbey Theatre, Ireland's national theatre, and a co-starring role in an Irish television show that won 7 IFTAs, the equivalent to the Emmys in Ireland. That was, we call it Klondike over here. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the in Ireland,
It's sorry to throw in. It's Dominion Creek is what it's called
Yes,
in the U.S. And
thank
I believe
you.
it's on Acorn TV if you want to watch it.
it is on Acorn TV. Yeah, it's called An Klondike here, which is Irish. It's the Irish way to say the Klondike because it was made for the Irish TV, the Irish language TV channel. Yeah.
Right on. We're, of course, here to talk to you about your work in Once, where you were in the touring production. You performed in Dublin for a long time. You performed
Yes.
in Seoul, correct?
Yes, that's right.
And you played Girl.
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 Yeah. She has no
Yeah.
name. Girl has no name. Guy has no
Yeah.
name. A couple other characters in the play also have no name.
And right now, and we're going to get to Once, but I just did want to mention that you have a cabaret show in the Dublin Fringe Festival that I'm
Yes.
guessing we're going to see in other places called It's Not About Love, which is kind of your riff on Shakespeare and how horrible love is in general.
Correct. Yes and yes. Yeah, it's a riff on why we use Romeo and Juliet as a shorthand for true love when it's about 2 teenagers and everybody dies. And what does thinking about love as having to have that kind of feeling actually doing to us? Like, that's not a model for anything. And I can't answer the question of what it means to the entire world that we do that, but I've started looking at how might that have affected my own life, whether it was conscious or not.
Cool. Well, let's talk about Once.
Let's.
What was your first encounter with the film? How did you first come about knowing the movie?
I saw the film. Oh, that's a great question. I didn't see it in the theater, but I definitely saw it while I was in Ireland. Uh, I think it could have even been a thing. Oh my God, did I rent it? Did I possibly rent it from like rent the DVD to watch it? I think I might have. I think that's how far back we're actually going. But I do remember it was, like quite a sensation when it came out here because it was just so well acclaimed, and then of course with Falling Slowly winning the Oscar. But I remember watching it and really enjoying kind of the indie-ness of it. And I felt like it really did encapsulate a lot of what it felt like to be in Ireland and love music and kind of go like the way it's kind of woven into daily life here, the way people just kind of like sing songs at house parties and things like that.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I had for you. Can you talk about music as part of an Irish
Yeah.
piece of existence, and
Mhm.
also the idea of what busking means over there?
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, yeah, first of all, Irish as an Irish piece of existence, it's just a thing that it feels like everyone just kind of does in a way that's not about you only do music if you want to pursue music professionally. It's like people just learn songs. There's this tradition here called a party piece, which is the song you sing at 2 a.m. when everyone's hammered. And everyone has one. And it can be like a traditional Irish song. It could be a funny song. It could be like something that's current. You can update it. Like you're not locked in for life once you pick your party piece.
What is yours?
Oh God, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I don't have one now because I'm like, I do this for a living. I don't. I'm off the clock.
Mine is that song from Dreamgirls.
I'm telling you, I'm not going.
That's the one.
I want to see it. I want to be there.
No, you really, really, really don't.
And so that there's a tradition when that starts to happen called the noble call, which is someone will start and they'll sing their song and then they'll nominate the next person. And then the next person has to do it. And you're kind of not allowed to tap out. Like you need to have something. And it doesn't matter. It also doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be like singing. It's not that everyone is magically gifted with a great voice, but you need to have some sort of thing. It could be a poem. It could be a joke. It could be a story, And I remember being really struck by just how much music is woven into culture here when I first came here in a way that like all the bars seem to have live music and storytelling seemed to be a big part of it as well. So like theater and music and storytelling all kind of seem to be sort of mushed together in a way. So yeah, like I know so many people who are so incredibly talented musically, but they've never pursued it. It's just a big part of the cultural currency, I think, for a lot of historical reasons, a lot of kind of British colonial reasons. It was like there are a lot of rebel songs, there's a lot of protest songs, and they're all still kind of in the air in a way, especially with Brexit going on.
Let's get into Brexit. No.
Oh no, let's not. What was your other question about? Busking. Yeah, busking is huge, especially right now because we're in the summer and when the weather's good, you can walk down certain streets and it's a Grafton Street, like at the street that he's on in the film. And, every 20 or 30 feet, there'll be someone new. And there's a huge tradition on Christmas Eve where celebrities come out and busk on Grafton Street. So Glen Hansard's usually out on Christmas Eve, or Damien Rice or Bono. I think Hosier's done it. So it's just that's a big, I don't know why as well. It just kind of is a big, it's just kind of an expected thing. It's big in Dublin. It's really big in Galway. And Galway, they tend to have a lot of street performers as well, like a lot of like circus performers or dance or something. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why that's a thing, but it is a thing.
I think I love that as a thing. I know Joe Strummer, like one of the last tours he ever did was like he got a band together and they just started busking all over the country.
Amazing.
Like unannounced, and like people would be like, I think Joe Strummer's playing on our street right now, So
yeah.
And it was just for him a way to get back to what music meant and cut out all the BS.
It's definitely a thing that a lot of musicians have said, and I have a lot of friends who've done it, that it is, you get really good really quick, because if you're not good, no one's going to listen to you and no one's going to give you money. And it is really direct, and you do kind of see what people respond to, and directly talk to people, and it's very immediate in a way that, you know, sitting down, maybe recording something or trying to release a single isn't.
Have you done it?
No. We only we did a couple of busking events for once as promo stuff. Like we did one on Grafton Street where we actually, like, there is a street performer who uses a piano, like an actual upright piano. So I played that. And we did some events in Korea as well that were supposed to be like busking, but they were very highly produced. They were like set stages kind of at shopping malls or on the street somewhere, and had like mics and stuff. But
Cool.
no,
So
I've
you
never
were
done it myself.
You're saying you were the Tiffany of South Korea, the Debbie Gibson, if you will, of the Korean world.
My internet connection got really weird for a second, so I did not hear that question. What was that question?
It was best that you didn't. Let's move on to something else.
Okay.
Yeah, no. Well, we're talking about your work in the musical. I mean, obviously, it was on Broadway first. It cleaned up.
Yeah.
Won 8 awards out of 11. How did you first? And then it did have an iteration in Ireland before you became involved with it, correct?
Yes. Yeah. The West End production basically did their out of town tryout in Dublin. But I never saw it then. I never saw the show before I did it. So technically it was in Ireland before the production. We did, but ours was the first Irish company and the first one to actually really prioritize an Irish or Irish-based cast.
I was just wondering, when you heard that it was a show, did you ever think like, oh, well, that would be something that could be awesome if they brought it over here and that I'd want to do? And either way, how did you come to be involved with the show?
I think when I heard it was going to be a musical, I was like, okay, that makes sense because there's so much music in it. But I had sort of forgotten what the plot was. And then it turns out it's because there kind of isn't one in the film. Like, not big on plot. But we can talk about how that's changed for the stage show a little later. How I became involved with it was I just heard about the audition. My agent told me about it in January of 2015. I had no idea that there was going to be an Irish production of it. So it kind of came out of nowhere, and it was an incredibly stressful audition process. It went on for months. It was, you know, the biggest thing I've done to date, like the most high profile, the most professional, really. I mean, I'm sure that's what auditions are like for Broadway shows, is that you do go in multiple times over months and months. Yeah, it was. Yeah, sorry, I'm having flashbacks to how intense it was.
Clearly,
get me out of it.
you
Get me
are.
out.
So,
Get me out.
I was wondering if you're going to hide under your couch or something like that.
Somebody
Did you played Girl in
Yeah.
that production? Did you have to have like a Czech accent?
I did, yeah.
Well, let's hear a little of that.
I knew you were going to ask me to do that. I don't remember the lines well enough to do it. But,
So did you study? I mean, when you knew that you were going to audition, or when you knew you were going to be in the film or in the production,
Yeah.
did you go back and study the film, or is that something that you tried to kind of stay away from?
No, I watched the film during the audition process for the accent, but kind of nothing else, because the script, the play adaptation is so different. They had to add some plot in, basically. They needed to make it a little bit more focused. So whereas in the film, it's just sort of about them kind of hanging around and then, you know, recording the CD. We kind of put some more time pressure on it. But again, like even now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, nope, still not a lot of plot. I mean, they added kind of some subplots with some minor characters and romantic interests and whatever. So we didn't reference the movie too much in rehearsals, really, because the arrangements of the songs are pretty different. I mean, it's like a 10 or 12 piece band. So it's not just, a guy with a guitar. Well, sometimes it's just the guy with the guitar, but then, we've got strings and percussion and bass and everything and accordion and mandolins coming in. So, yeah, we never sat down and watched it in rehearsal. We tried to make it its own thing. And also by the time we as a company were doing it, it had been done a couple other times, the Broadway run and the West End run, and I think the US national tour. And so the director coming in and the associate directors who are doing a lot of the heavy lifting, it's like they know what it is already, and now it's just our job to find our version of that. It's very different from a lot of other shows I've done. It's almost like a franchise of something that already exists.
Are you saying you were in the Tony and Tina of never mind.
No, definitely not.
Josh and I just while talking about the film saw the ending differently.
Oh yeah.
Did you have any opinions on the ending? Is it happy? Is it sad? What really happens at the end of that movie?
Well, the ending is basically the same in the film, though I think the conditions of the girl of his ex-girlfriend not being there are different, because in the movie isn't it she cheated on him or something and has moved away to London? Is that right?
Yes.
In the play, it's thank you. In the play, it's not that. It's kind of just he's sad and can't get his shit together, and she goes to New York, and then he decides he's gonna go to her. I found it very. I mean, it's very sad. Oof. It's both. I mean, it's we talked so much in rehearsal about what is the nature of their relationship, and it's a love story, but it doesn't end with them together, and they can still love each other, and he can still love his ex-girlfriend, and she can still love her husband, and I don't know. It was. We also tried to look at it from a very practical perspective, in the sense of where her sensibility might be coming from, of she has to just do what's right for her daughter, and about that life that she wants to have in Dublin. I always found it really sad, though. There's joy at getting the piano. That's kind of her true love story, is her and that piano, basically. But I don't know how to answer. It's funny, I haven't thought of it that way in so long. So wait, so one of you thinks it's happy, one of you thinks it's sad?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I thought it was a happy ending, that it's not about them getting together, but rather it's about them being each in the right place for them. It's good for him to be back with his ex. It's good for her to be with her husband.
Yeah.
And it's good for them to have made music together, which is the most important thing about their relationship.
Yeah, I agree with that. And
I do not.
I understand. Yes. Explain.
I mean, clearly there was something more to their relationship than just a professional connection.
Yeah.
And I feel like they were at different points in time not either acknowledging it or just trying to avoid it. And they're both headed back towards relationships that were doomed in the past. And sooner or later, they'll probably end up doomed again.
I agree.
Such a bleak perspective.
But I agree with both of you. I do. I think also in the play, it's a little bit more explicit of. Actually, no. Maybe that's the same as the film, where it's he kind of tries a couple times at the end. He's kind of like, "Is this gonna happen? Is it gonna happen? It's gonna happen." And she keeps saying no. I don't know. I suppose it depends on what you're. I mean, yeah, it is. If you want it to be a romantic comedy, it fails as a romantic comedy because they don't end up together. But if you do want it to be about different types of love and different types of experiences that you can have, and maybe love doesn't have to take the form of the relationship that lasts forever.
So in the film, she was 17 when she made the movie.
Oh God, that's right.
Did you have to play like a teenager? Were you playing a teenager at that point in time?
No. I mean, girl is meant to be a young mother, or read fairly young, because she in the play we have the daughter is about, I think she's meant to be about 5, 4 or 5. Yeah, it's not specified what age they are, but they weren't trying to she doesn't read as 17 in the film to me. she seems older. I know she is 17, but she seems older. So no, we're definitely not trying for like, teenage ingenue kind of thing. But all the girl, like from every picture I've ever seen, they do seem to read as kind of like mid-20s, late 20s.
Yeah, one thing Josh and I were talking about is if the movie came out today, would it have struck the same level of support when you kind of look at the romance of a 37-year-old and a 17-year-old in this political climate? It might get shelved rather quickly.
Yeah, I don't think I think that's what the film would become about. And I don't necessarily, I mean, Glen Hansard knew Marketa from when she was very young, which some people have also found problematic, but I don't. I mean, do they say her age in the film? Do they say she's 17?
It's just really what we know from reality.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I don't honestly think it's really an issue with the movie. I think as much as the sort of the real world context,
Yeah.
you don't notice it really while you're watching the film.
No, I kind of when I watched it, I assumed she was like mid-20s, mid to early 20s.
Talk about didn't Glen Hansard come and play with you guys one night after the show?
Not after. He came out and did some he did a song on stage. He did that the second year. I think he did it the first year too. Yeah, both years I did it, he came in and saw it. And played a traditional Irish song, The Old Triangle, with us on stage at the curtain call, and we all sang it. It was great. John Carney was around both years as well, the director. He didn't come on stage and play though he used to be a musician. He used to play bass in Glen Hansard's band, The Frames.
Right.
Which is great band if y'all don't know it. Really.
So are there any other Irish bands that you want to recommend to our audience that they might not know?
Okay, well, it's going to be a lot of people I personally know, so it's not like Glen Hansard in the slightest, but my good friend Alma has like an electro pop persona called Lux Alma that's really good. My friend Danny Ford, Forde, does amazing, like beautiful acoustic things with strings. It's kind of Nick Drake-ish kind of vibe. There's a punk band that's becoming really popular called Fontaines DC. They've played on like the late night talk shows in America. They're like the new sensation now. I'm trying to think. There's Electric Picnic is happening this weekend. I'm trying to think of who are the big Irish headliners. I mean, Hozier just headlined last night, so that's.
I have a friend. His name is Shane McGowan. You might have heard of him.
Oh yeah, I know Shane.
Yeah, I think he's gonna.
You guys are pals?
Well, we go to the same dentist. That's not true because he doesn't go to a dentist.
He's got like 3 teeth.
But what? So we were talking about Glen Hansard. You know, like he's kind of had some success here, but he seems so specifically Irish. What is his kind of persona out there at this point? I know he just released an album last year, and I think he's got one this year. Like,
he's got a good, really good album that just came out. It's really good. Like, how is he seen in Dublin or Ireland?
Yeah, is he still a big deal out there? And, you know, what does he mean to the community? And all that?
Yeah, he apparently. An actress I used to live with. She did the second year I did once. She was a housemate. Her dad was Glen's tour manager for years, and so he was like an old family friend. And Glen apparently plays in a pub like every Monday night or something, in a pub outside of town. He just like rocks up and like jams. And that's a really Irish thing, that celebrities are kind of left alone to a certain extent. Like they're not sort of like mobbed by people. Like visiting people can be. Remember one time Snoop Dogg was in town and he like walked down Grafton Street and people were going nuts. But like people, like Irish people, like actors and stuff who walk around, people are just really chill about it. So, you know, there's a huge sense of pride about him winning the Oscar and everything. But I think a lot of people, and also because he was around in the scene for so long, that so many people know him and they're like, oh, it's just Glen. You know, there's no romanticizing of like he won an Oscar, and oh my God, it's just like, yeah, it's that guy, you know?
Do you have a favorite song from Once, a favorite to perform or a favorite to listen to?
Ooh, it was always really fun to play When Your Mind's Made Up. It was really challenging because it's in 5/4. So it's like you really have to like count a lot. It's not challenging to play in terms of the piano of it, but it's the build of it is really satisfying in the stage show. I can't remember how it is in the film, but it just starts with piano and guitar, and it builds so that the entire orchestra is playing. So then there's drums and bass and strings and the mandolins and the accordions and everything. And then it becomes this like wall of sound, and then it just cuts out at the end and it's just back to piano and guitar. And it's so beautiful. And it's so hard to do. It was really hard. And so it was just more satisfying.
Yeah, so why don't you do a little number for that for us?
Okay.
Right now?
Let me just go get a piano. Sure.
So at the end of our show, we always talk about the legacy of the film, which obviously this has become a legacy in many forms of media. What do you think the legacy of Once is?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's different people got different things out of it. I mean, different people who worked on the film. I'm trying to think of like the legacy of it for like Glen and Marketa. Like there was a documentary made about their subsequent like relationship and touring and the album they made, which I haven't seen. And now I think she lives in Iceland and makes music there or something. So that's her legacy. John Carney then went on to make Begin Again, which I never saw. And then Sing Street, which is so good. It's so good. There is, if it had not come out in the same year as La La Land, it would have been so huge. It's so good.
That was my favorite movie of 2016.
I have seen it like 4 or 5 times. I fucking love it. They are making that into a musical it's going to be off Broadway. I'm sure it'll go to Broadway.
Are you going to try to play one of the kids?
I'm not. No. There's no part for anyone my age in it, alas. But so that's kind of that thing. And also John Carney's, so you know, that put him on this path to do all this amazing musical stuff. He's doing an Amazon series called Modern Love that's got music in it. So he did very well out of that. I think the legacy of it is one of the things I love about Ireland and why I keep coming back here and have made work here and want to keep making work here is because of the fact that it really punches above its weight artistically for how small of a country it is. Like the population of the entire Republic of Ireland is like 4 million people. Like that is nothing. Like that is half of the island of Manhattan or something. And the amazing work that comes out of it is so I don't know. I think it's I think Once is a great example of that. That it's a small thing and it's a personal thing, but it became so resonant and it had this like really broad appeal. So I think the legacy was to really like give a big boost to Irish filmmakers thinking like, yeah, we can do this, you know, we can make small things and have it be recognized. Now that being said, there hasn't really necessarily been a successor to it in that way, though. Like The Favorite that won a bunch of Oscars last year, that was an Irish production. It didn't film in Ireland, but it was Irish producers and stuff. So I think that, you know, from a strictly professional perspective, not artistic, not cultural, you know, the legacy is that people, you know, took Ireland seriously in terms of Academy Awards and things like that.
Do you, we're going to let you go, but do you want to recommend either a movie or a TV show that American listeners might not have caught on to yet that's in Ireland? Like, I love The Young Offenders. That's a dope movie.
Yeah. Young Offenders is great.
Do you have anything?
Yeah, you've probably started to hear about Dairy Girls.
Right.
It's really funny. It's really good. Like believe the hype. There is also, now it was made for not the BBC, but it's made for a British broadcaster, but it's Irish comedians making it. Sharon Horgan and Aisling B Ashling's an old friend from college. We're all very proud of her. This show is apparently amazing. I haven't watched it yet. It's called This Way Up, and it is like getting like 5-star reviews. It is apparently like the voice of the generation kind of level of comedy and sensitivity. And I think it's on Hulu. I think it's definitely coming to an American platform.
It's on Showtime out here. So, all right. Well, thank you, Megan. We're all so happy for you. And the next time that you're in a stage play based on a movie that we're covering for our podcast, we'll be sure to have you back on.
I would love that. I look forward to it. I'll try to talk my way into Sing Street and have you do Awesome Movie Year for, what was it, 2016?
I'd be way down for that one.
Yeah.
So, all right.
I'll see what I can do.
Go sing some fun songs on the street. Go sing
I will.
on the street like sing. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year and our 2007 episode on the Sundance Award winner Once. And we just chatted with Megan Riordan, which was pretty awesome. And we're coming back to talk about the legacy of Once, although we talked a little bit about that with Megan. And of course, she is a big part of it.
Yeah. And I think she pretty much nailed it. Like, you know, with so many platforms and such viability and availability around the world, you can watch movies and TV from everywhere. And Once was one of these things that you might have had to seek out back in the day. But now I think it really helped shine a spotlight on Irish cinema and in a way Irish television. So I love a lot of that stuff. Like Megan was saying, like Sing Street, I mentioned I love, and I'm excited. You know, Catastrophe is a television show I love. So I'm excited to check out Dairy Girls and This Way Up. And, you know, I think otherwise she kind of pretty much summed it up for me as far as the legacy. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, she talked a lot about Glen Hansard's later career. And like we were mentioning earlier, before we talked to Megan about Marketa Irglova and how she's off in Iceland now. And she has made a couple albums that sound very strange. Yeah, really, they do. Like it's strange and not mainstream at all. She's really, neither of them went on to acting careers, but she really seems to have kind of set herself away from even a mainstream music career.
Do either of you know the documentary Megan was talking about the
Swell season? I think I had read that it existed, but I have not seen it.
Same here.
Yeah, I think she also, I mean, you mentioned Sing Street. Begin Again is the other big John Carney music movie. And I think, to me, Begin Again, we were talking a little bit about how Once works so well because these actors are not well known.
Yeah.
And Begin Again is sort of like the Hollywoodized version of Once. You know, you've got Mark Ruffalo and Keira Knightley in it instead. And it's all right. I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but I feel like it just is kind of a pale imitation of Once.
And we've seen that, you know, where an indie filmmaker strikes it big and Hollywood says, do you have something similar you want to do for a bigger budget? And it doesn't turn out as well. But Modern Love could be pretty awesome, I think.
Yeah, John Carney is going to be the showrunner on that, an Amazon show based on the New York Times columns. I don't think there's any singing in it, so we'll see how he does without that. He's made other non-musical movies, but those never seem to do anything.
I mean, even the title's a song. David Bowie, bro.
That's true. Maybe it'll be the theme song, but I don't think it's not a musical series. Yeah, the stage, I think we didn't ask Megan, the stage production still, I think, is performed in various places, even though her involvement ended a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's going to go on and on as revivals and this and that, and, you know, the next generation of Once, and, you know, right. It'll just keep going, man.
Yeah. So. And there is definitely influence in movies. We mentioned Blinded by the Light a little. To me, like the new A Star Is Born, especially in what I was talking about, like the construction of a song, there's a lot of that stuff between Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga in that movie. I think you can see the influence of Once there as well.
I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah.
Yeah. We missed in our previous segment to do our rating. Did you want to rate Once out of blue vacuums that are dragged along the street? Hoovers? Yeah.
Out of 5 Hoover vacuums that need repairs, I'm giving this 5, dude. I love it. And I watched it the other day, obviously, in anticipation of this. And I was like, I loved it just as much this time as the first time I saw it, which, as we've learned in past episodes, is not always the case with films that we are rewatching.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I think I liked it maybe a little bit more just because my expectations were not quite as big. But I still think it's mostly just a nice movie. It doesn't really like move me as much, but I would give it 3.5 out of 5. I definitely like it. I mean, I would recommend anyone to check it out. It's enjoyable.
3.5's good.
Yeah, no, it is good. I wouldn't, I don't want to underrate it. It is a good movie. If anyone hasn't seen it, check it out. It's very much, if you like the before movies or romantic films like that, it's absolutely worth checking out. So that's Once, and that's this episode of Awesome Movie Year. Did you have something?
Yeah, we'll close with a song from Once. That
No.
No? Okay,
No, we will not ever do that.
Okay.
No,
I thought that was-
no singing of songs
All
from
right.
Once.
Okay.
No, that's the end of this episode, but you can catch us on social media.
You can catch us on social media, and we appreciate all the feedback. And we are at awesomemovieyear.com and Awesome Movie Year on the Facebook and the Instagram, and Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter. I am personally at Jason Harris Comedy on Facebook and Instagram, and Jay Harris Comedy on Twitter. Go for Jason is my website, and that's all my socials.
All right. I am at joshbellhateseverything.com. I'm at Josh Bell Hates Everything on Facebook and at Signal Bleed on Twitter. And check out our producer, David Rosen's awesome podcast, Piecing It Together.
Yeah, you can find Piecing It Together wherever you listen to this podcast. And since we mentioned me being a musician on this episode, instead of plugging my social medias for Piecing It Together, I'll just say check out at By David Rosen or bydavidrosen.com for my music.
Listen to his music in the car. Give it the car test.
Yeah.
Give it the car test.
And Megan is at meganriordan.com.
I think so, yes.
All right. Let's hope that's correct.
Yeah. If not, just Google search Megan Riordan. She was in the Wikipedia about stage play.
There you go. That's
Yeah.
important. Look for Megan Riordan on
On
Wikipedia.
She doesn't have her own page, but she is on that. So.
What do we have coming up next time?
Ooh, buddy. We got the complete opposite of Once, I'll tell you that much. We're going with the Stone Cold Grinder next time.
Yes.
It's the best picture of 2007. The Relentless No Country for Old Men.
It is relentless. So tune in for that next time. Thanks for listening to Awesome Movie Year.
Thank you for listening to Awesome Movie Year. Make sure to follow Awesome Movie Year on Facebook, at Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter, and at Awesome Movie Year on Instagram. And if you like the show, review us and rate us with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
And all points west.
That's not even a song from Once.
Cut that shit out. Do not.